It's the morning after the Springboks' first official test match of the year, where they ended up beating Italy 42 points to 24. Now, online there have been a couple of differing opinions over sort of the last 12 hours or so. I think a lot of people are quite upset by the performance that the Springboks put on, especially in the second half. I've seen a lot of comments sort of going at a couple of players, going at the Springboks sort of game plan in that second half. And Rassie has also reacted to the game in the post-match press conference. So I kind of want to go through a couple of his points that he laid out during that press conference, because he definitely didn't hold back. And I think that's why we love Rassie so much, is because he says it how it is. If the Boks played cuck, he's going to tell you they played cuck and that there's a lot for them to work on. And that's exactly what he did. My thoughts sort of over the last 12 hours haven't changed much since my breakdown straight after the game. I think a good first half. We still looked a little bit tense, a little bit like we were trying to force it. And then that second half was just an absolute circus, to be honest with you. There should be no world where Italy is beating the Springboks 21-14 in a second half of a rugby game at Loftus, with the bomb squad coming on and the players that are in that bomb squad as well as the rest of the team. So I'm going to dive into exactly what Rassie said, give you some of my thoughts on his thoughts, and then you guys give me your thoughts down in the comments. Also, if you haven't, please leave this video a like and hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers, and I'm trying to bring you the best Springbok content possible. So I think the first key point that Rassie sort of brought up was that it was frustrating despite the win. So the Springboks won 42-24, but Rassie called this performance frustrating. Led 28-3 at halftime, and then, like I said, ended up losing the second half 21-14. He described the match as quite stop-starts with no second half intensity from the Springboks, and he kind of referenced how Italy reacted to that. They sort of had 3 or 4 minutes off because of an injury, and then Italy was straight back into the game, where the Springboks sort of took a while to get back into the game after those stoppages, and then as they just getting into the game, it would stop again. So I think that's more of a mindset shift for the Springboks than it is a physical one or a tactical one. Italy were up for that game. It's the average age of that team was 24. They're young. They have nothing to lose. They have everything to prove. And I think that's exactly what they showed in that second half. And they're going to take a lot of confidence into this next test match against the Springboks, thinking that they probably could turn the Springboks over if the Springboks don't pitch up. And I think that second half and maybe patches in the first half is why Rassie said that there is going to be a selection shake-up for that second test. He had already pre-planned who he was going to be selecting for that second test match, but now he says he's reconsidering because the team needs to be able to go 80 minutes, not just 60 minutes. He did say that Sasha Feinberg and Ngumazulu will be back for that second test match. He even hinted at Grant Williams potentially returning. But he also said that those guys that really performed well, I'm thinking of Morne van den Berg, I'm thinking of Vincent Chichuka, a Jasper Visser, those guys might start that game. They might be shifted if the pre-plan was them to have them on the bench or not even play. They might get another start because of how well they played in this game. So I think we can expect quite a lot of shake-up. Rassie did say they had about 13 or 14 players that they had sort of pre-selected and sort of promised them that they'll be playing that second test against Italy. But now he's kind of saying they might be benching, and if they're on the bench, they might start. Maybe some of them will drop out, and they need to find those other 9 players that can sort of fit in to make that match day 23. So I think there's going to be a lot of shake-up. I wouldn't be surprised if Rassie gives a go to someone like an Ethan Hooker, if Marnus van der Merwe starts at hooker ahead of Malcolm Marx and Bongi Mbonambe. I wouldn't be surprised if our front row stays with Oxencher and Volko Low. I know Ox did play in the first test match, so maybe they should bring in Thomas du Toit just to give Ox a little bit of rest. You look at the Lucies, I wouldn't be surprised if Vincent Chichuka starts again. Marco van Staden will probably start in that 6 jersey, or Sia Khaleesi. Sia seems to be back, and I think Sia might start in that 8 jersey. I think you got to stay with Jasper. He really put his hand up for the Springboks in that game. And then in the back line, they're going to bring Sasha back in that number 10 role. And I think, let's speak about Handré Pollard for a little bit, because this is another sentiment that I saw online, is that the back line doesn't function as it should when Handré Pollard is on the pitch. Now, it's a hot take, and yes, Handré Pollard kicks 6 for 6 over the poles. But now, as South African fans, we need to decide what's more important. Is a kicking fly-off more important than an attacking fly-off? If Manie Leboeck and Sasha come onto the field, a lot of people think that the backline operates a little bit better. They say that Handré Pollard is a one-dimensional fly-off, and I tend to agree with that. Sasha and Manie are definitely more than a one-dimensional fly-off. They really do get the backline going. They're much better at seeing the space, at getting people, getting the centers and the wings into space. So it's going to be interesting because Sasha and Manie bring something completely different to what Handré Pollard does. And if our game plan under Tony Brown is to run the ball a little bit more, then you need Sasha or Manie in that number 10 jersey. If it is going to be a little bit more confrontational and upfront and physical, then Handré Pollard can play in that number 10 jersey and make sure that he kicks over all his points. My question is, if Pollard has an off day, off the tee, if he kicks 3 out of 6, then I think a lot of people are going to be saying, well, if he's not kicking well, then we might as well have an attacking fly-off in that number 10 jersey in Sasha or Manie. It's an interesting debate. I can sort of see people starting to move on from Handré Pollard and the Handré Pollard hype. He still is a phenomenal fly-off, but I do think Sasha and Manie bring just that little bit of X factor in that 10 jersey. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. The third point that Rassie Rasmus kind of talked about was praise for Italy. I mean, it's a young side. They manned up physically. They made it very, very difficult at ruck time for the Springboks, and legally so. They slowed that ball down. They held the Springboks up. And he also said that someone asked him a question about Vincent Chichuka and what he thought about Vincent's performance. And he said Vincent was probably one of the standouts in terms of physicality and in terms of wanting to be in that game and sort of putting the physicality onto the Italians. And he said that for a Springbok team not to do that, not to be winning mauls, I mean, our mauls completely misfired. Italy scored a 20-meter maul try against the Springboks. He kind of just said that it didn't look like anyone was sort of up for it and didn't match the intensity that Italy did. And you got to give them credit for that, because if you come up against the Springboks with this elusive, scary bomb squad, you know what you're going to get. The Boks are going to be physical, and if they're not, and you don't, and if they are and you don't man up, then you're in trouble. But you got to give Italy some praise for that. And to be fair, Italy are going to take a lot of confidence out of that performance from yesterday. His fourth point was technical shortcomings. Like I said, the maul didn't function, breakdown was messy, and counter-attack wasn't great. Now, on all three of those points, we still scored 6 tries. So something is clearly working in the attacking system. Can you imagine if the maul is functioning, if the breakdown isn't messy and we're getting clean ball, if the counter-attack was good? I thought Damien Willemse had a great counter-attack just after the first half, where he kind of stepped 4 guys. We got quick ball, and Vincent Chichuka ended up scoring in the corner, which eventually got disallowed. That was probably our best counter-attacking play. But I agree with Rassie. We didn't have much counter-attacking. Chesney was quite quiet, and I think that's because he didn't get the ball in enough space. We didn't get the ball through the hands quick enough to Chase and Colby to put him in enough space. Obviously, Kurtley Orense showed his class, scoring a try. He was very, very good. But for those technical shortcomings of the maul, the breakdown, and the counter-attack not to be functioning, and the Springboks still to be scoring 6 tries is a massive, massive positive. And then finally, he just kind of updated us on any injuries and a mental state. Damien Delende has a minor hamstring tweak, but I don't think it's anything too major. Rassie said there's no major injuries, but a few bruised egos. And I think that perfectly sums up that Italian test match. The Springboks were not nearly as good as they should have been. Probably a 6 out of 10 performance, and that's probably the first half carrying that. I think we're going to see a lot of chopping and changing. I think we could see a bit of changing of the guard, giving a couple of the younger guys opportunities against Italy and Georgia, because for a bomb squad to come on and have no impact whatsoever and end up losing a second half is not the way forward for the Springboks. There's going to be a lot of content coming out today as well as tomorrow, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave this video a like, and let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.